Hey team, welcome in. Hermitarius here. This is the chart of the moment right now as I just finished recording the other pieces of video I needed for this video about a technique that really helped me deepen my understanding and my relationship with my chart, which was looking at kind of like the planetary birth story around my birth, which correlates really well into the secondary progressions timing technique. But basically, what you want to do is you want to look at your chart. I started with looking at, I was just looking for celebrity charts online, and AstroStreak had a list of people that were born and who died like around this time of year. Eleanor came up. She was an astrologer, so I clicked on her thing. So I go through this chart and how I would compare using this chart and an ephemeris to see when planets were stationing, are there eclipses that are happening, and then using this planetary speeds information from Kelly Surtees. The ephemeris is from astro.com and the chart is from astro-seek.com to see if we can find any information in the birth story that would resonate either in our understanding of ourselves and or of the planets, or that resonate with the secondary progressions timing technique, which is that every day uh, of your life here in the ephemeris, or day by day in the early, first 90 days of your life, correlate year by year to the first 90 years of your life. So, thank you for joining me in this video where I go over what I term the planetary birth story and how I would go about looking that up. First, I look at Eleanor chart and then I talk about my own chart. I don't pull up the ephemeris. You can do that if you like. I just talk about what I remember happening from the last time that I looked this up. And then I talk about the correlations I have noticed in my own life that have to do with that. So hopefully that is interesting to anybody or helps them understand how to read an ephemeris or how to look at their chart with one. Again, this chart that we're looking at right now is just the chart of the moment. Okay, here I am on astro.com. I just googled ephemeris and I'm gonna go down to, I pulled up this birth chart for Eleanor Bach, who was born January 11th, 1922. So I want to look at the 20th century for 1900s, 1922. And I'm going to want to look at the November, December of 1921 as well. Okay, so January 11th, this is our date that we care about. What we're looking at is like birth story. So the first thing that we can see with a birth story is this person an eclipse baby? Well, that's today. Is this person an eclipse baby? And no, because the sun is nowhere near either of the nodes. And in order for someone to be an eclipse baby, they have to be born with the sun about to have a new moon or a full moon experience within 18 degrees of either node, which is not happening. However, this person is like a nodal bending baby. The nodal bendings are just the square points of the nodes, which also happen to be on the angles, basically. So that's notable, but not anything I can really work with. There were not eclipses anytime around this person's birth, but we can see that they are a gibbous moon, about to be full moon, past the trine, which is a gibbous, so this is technically like a quincunx angle. So Capricorn, where the sun is, and Gemini, where the moon, have nothing to do with each other. So we might say that this person's sun and how they shine and how they like emotionally feel nurtured and lit up kind of are at odds with each other and like maybe even irritate each other a little bit or like get in each other's way in unexpected ways. But since there's no eclipses, let's look to see if anyone's retrograde. Neptune and Pluto are retrograde. That makes sense because they're opposite from the sun. Saturn is at a square with the sun, and so this may have recently come out of a retrograde. We'll see what Mars is up to, we'll see what Jupiter is up to. We'll see if Venus and Mercury have recently or are about to go into retrograde. And then everything else on this side looks like it's going to be pretty stable. Uranus would have stationed out of retrograde like a couple seasons ago, and same with Chiron. So we'll see when these guys shift, we'll see when these shifted or are about to shift again, and if anything was happening with the inner planets, Venus and Mercury. So we're going to go over here and we're going to see Mercury is about to station retrograde at 1 degree Pisces, which is like 23 days away, which is a bit far away. What does that mean for our speed with Mercury? Well, if Mercury is not retrograde during this time that he's so close to the sun, because he's going to be retrograde in about 25 days, that means this is the superior or external conjunction with the sun, which means that Mercury is at basically his fastest that he can be, speeding by and past the sun. So that's what we can see here in the chart. Sun is here, Mercury is past and zooming past, and we'll keep zooming and kind of like slowing down, and then we'll still be ahead of the sun and we'll turn retrograde here and turn to face the sun, and then they'll have an internal conjunction. Mercury turns retrograde at about day 25-ish, and they have a conjunction age 35-ish, and then Mercury stations direct again maybe age 47. Okay, that's the Mercury story. The Venus story is Venus appears to be hella direct and not doing anything retrograde or suspicious. But we'll look again in the December part of the calendar. She turns retrograde in Sagittarius in November. So she is really fast as well. So she's in her superior conjunction. This is the fastest she's going to be. She is also zooming past the sun and like, thanks for the last retrograde, bye. And she's going to zoom around, she's going to zip, she's going to lead the sun, and she's going to be an evening star as she races into each zodiac sign in zodiacal or secondary motion, ahead of and faster than the sun. And then she's going to start slowing down in November and will turn retrograde in Sagittarius. But she's very fast right now. Mars turned retrograde in Sagittarius as well in May. So here Mars is in Scorpio, coming up to Sagittarius, and then we'll get to about here in May, so in about 4 months, and turn retrograde. I'm not sure, team, but nothing's happening tightly around the date of birth. So these planets are not like, I just stationed, I'm about to station. I have some important news I've been sitting on, you know? So we'll go back up to January, and we're looking at Jupiter and Saturn. So Saturn is just about to turn retrograde in 6 days. And if we look at this ephemeris, we can see that, you know, like let's look a month from now, February 11th. Saturn is going to be at 7.4, then 7.1, then 6.59, then 6.56. Every day is a new degree. More than that, it's a new series of degrees. And what's happening right now on the date of birth is that Saturn has been at the same degree that he is today as yesterday, and he's spending 2 days up to two. It's getting longer and longer. He's been spending a day a degree, and it's getting longer and longer. And then he'll spend, look at this, a week, a whole week at 7 degrees 36 minutes. So he's got something to say about that. And this station retrograde happens, maybe age 6. So maybe a parent figure had a turnaround at around age 6 maybe. I'm not sure. So that's part of the planetary story, right? So let's look at what Saturn's doing. Saturn is here in the first house. Maybe at age 6, something was like solidified about what the native knows about themselves. And then this being part of the birth story, in Libra, we go down to Capricorn, where, oh, that's lovely. A lovely mutual reception square between Saturn and Libra and Venus and Capricorn. But now, because I know that Venus is going so a fast planet is important. A planet that's stationing is important. Like they're just going to have more resonance in the life. Venus, when is her conjunction with the sun? Because she's going so fast and she's going to pass sun. So Venus is going very fast. She's moving with the sun. And so it's like a really long, drawn out conjunction. And you think like, oh, they're going to have their conjunction. They're going to have it. They're going to have it. And it just takes forever. So the 10th through the 12th of February. So at about age 30, this person, whatever kind of like solidifying formative moment happened at around age 6 that they carried with them as an identity piece, I think they would have been like realized how they embodied it with the sun and Venus at around age 30. It would have like clicked. It would have really come home, which would make sense with the sun on the IC as like a homecoming. Like it really would have like clicked, you know? Did we already look at what Jupiter is doing? Jupiter is retrograde. Jupiter turns retrograde February 3rd. So that's like age 20-ish. That's a little bit far out of range, but like not really because Jupiter's also being slow. Two days for 1 minute, 2 days for 1 minute, a day a 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 minute. 2 minutes in a day, 2 minutes in a day. 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4. 4 minutes a day is what Jupiter is moving right now to eventually have a station that takes 3 days to like turn around in 1 minute. And then it's like, 2 days per minute. So he's really hanging out at this late 18-degree Libra zone. And he's already in the 18th degree here at 18.4, or what does the birth chart say? 1805, right? So we're having a station at 1854 in 20 days. Right on the ascendant. Okay, so now it's much more important than just like, oh, Jupiter stationing in 20 days. If it was tighter, I'd be more interested, but it's on the ascendant. Please. Square to ruler Venus, who has this mutual reception with co-present Saturn. Both of the far planets, both of the social planets together in a social sign in the first house. With the North Node, now makes me think voracious appetite for experience, or let's how people perceive her, eat her alive. And then Uranus is coming into the external conjunction with the Sun, and we know that Neptune and Pluto are retrograde, and they would have been retrograde for a really long time, right? They would have turned retrograde closer to the trine aspects. and the square aspects than the opposition. The opposition is when they have their they're in the middle of the retrograde, so it takes a little bit of time. So I'm not going to worry about them, but I am going to look at December of 1921. To see if there's anything else going on with Mercury or Venus or Mars. Okay, so Mercury's last retrograde was from 16 to 0 Scorpio, and then he recovered that later in November, and then all of December was just catching up to the sun. And they had their conjunction around the 28th of December. So like 2 weeks ago, they had their exact conjunction, but again with Mercury moving at the same speed of the sun. It's different with the far planets, like sun can just kind of like clip on by, but with Venus, Mercury, and Mars, the conjunction seems to last forever. Like you look at the chart and you're like, oh, they're gonna have a conjunction today, and it doesn't happen for like 5 days. And then you look at the chart and you're like, they just had a conjunction, but like no, it was like a week ago. They're just still walking together awkwardly after having said like really tearful goodbyes or whatever. So we can look and see that they kind of held pace with each other. Yeah, within a degree, within 2 degrees, within 2 degrees. We'll go back to 1922. If you want to have multiple of these open, you got to download it and then open the PDF. And then we're looking in January. Within 3 degrees, within 3, within 4. And so then Mercury started to peel away and get a little bit of distance only like 5 days ago, right? So that's important. And then we can also look at when do these planets leave combustion with the sun. I don't think that's within 2 weeks, but we could see. I look for the full 18-degree distance, which I know doesn't make sense for Mercury because like they spend so much time together. Yeah, so that's like 2 weeks away that Mercury becomes visible as the evening star. And Venus, yeah, so in 30 days we have the conjunction. And like we're pretty close right now, are we not? We're 7 degrees difference right now. So when does that narrow? How long do we hold like a tighter conjunction with the sun? 3 degrees, 3 degrees, 2 degrees, 2. So when was that? So for like 2 weeks until the conjunction, until the Kazemi, we're like basically together within 3 degrees. Like it's not like we're not together. And then the first shift we have is that Venus shifts signs before she gets more than like 2 degrees away from the sun. But then sun is right there while we're still 3 degrees apart. Then we get like a full proper 4-ish degrees apart, like 2 weeks after the conjunction. So that's a full month of Venus basically being in like lockstep, walking with the sun, right? The 2 weeks before and the 2 weeks after. Okay, so as far as birth story goes, I wonder if knowing that kind of thing gave this astrologer any kind of information or like insight, if she ever looked at it that way, about how these planets are fast and like Mercury would have already overtaken the sun. So like maybe to trust the insights, the like mental cues that she would get, those inspirations, whereas Venus is traveling with the sun at a very even clip through her cazimi until she begins to like peel away to reach for her well, like she just keeps peeling away. Like she's fast and she's in the superior like arc of her cycle until she begins to come into the retrograde in Sagittarius 11 months from now. So quite some time. Um, and what does that mean to be like at the height and the furthest in time, if not in space, because she just went through the area she's about to go into her next retrograde into, um, to be far in time, if not in space, from the next time she's going to have to like turn around and really confront some information that the sun may have. But right now, maybe did this give her any information about allowing the somatic information? Like the we trust the cerebral information because Mercury's already had contact with the sun, but learning and giving time, like at least a full 30 years to really like blossom into Venusian qualities, which may be held under scrutiny with this square to Libra as the rising sign. Um, but like it'll make sense. It'll begin to make sense and lose a bit of its heat in like a month. Like, did that give her, and then a month corresponds to 30 days corresponds to 30 years. So, like, at about age 30, this will soften enough because you'll see more about it. Yeah? So, that's how I might approach um, the birth story at this kind of chart. So, that's all it is. I'm looking in an ephemeris to see what's going on. You can also look at planetary speed. What is this? You can also look at planetary speed and we can see like who's fast, who's slow, and that's noteworthy about planets being fast or slow. Really recommend you signing up for that pop-up if you're new to astrology or if you want like a refresher on traditional Hellenistic astrology. So we know from looking at the chart and having identified that these planets being so close to the sun but not in retrograde means that they're going very fast. Jupiter is going very slow. Um, Mars is going middle and fast. He's coming into a place where he's going to start slowing down, but he's not really there yet. These guys are fine. They're just in their normal oppositional retrograde. So I just want to look once more into, yeah, Jupiter is stationing in like 20 days. So that's got a little bit of noteworthiness, but because Jupiter is so angular, yeah, now I'm very interested in what's going on with Jupiter. So key planets in this birth story are going to be that Mercury is fast and he just flew by the icy sun. Venus is fast and is doing her flyby of the icy sun. First Saturn and then Jupiter are going through stations in the first house Libra on the ascendant with the North Node. And the sun itself is square to that and also angular and is like a nodal bending baby. So, not being an eclipse baby, but having all of this nodal activity, eclipses and the 9 and 18-year cycle may still be very pertinent for this person. So, that's how I would interpret birth story. Not knowing anything about someone and like trying to describe. Oh, you look at your chart and then you look at the ephemeris and you see if, and you look at planetary speed and you see if there were like changes or like, you know, if these planets were retrograde, do they pass? Do they talk to each other? Who knows what's going on with who? That kind of thing, you know? Okay. Okay, I hope that made sense. And then talking about my birth story, I'm going to draw it out here and I'm going to talk about what I remember about it. And you can pull it up and look along with me using an ephemeris if you want to. So I was born January 23rd, 1990 at 2 a.m. at -7 time. So You look at the ephemeris, and then you look kind of, you subtract 7 hours from that time, and then you'll land at where my degrees are. Okay? Okay. Okay, so here's my little chart. Here's what is pertinent about it. I am an eclipse baby. How do I know that? I have a 3-degree sun and depending if you're looking at the mean or the true node, I have a 16 or a 17-degree north node. The last lunation that happened, or the san, or the syzygy, for me is up at 20 degrees Cancer. So that was the last lunation. I'm about to be in a full moon because moon is here tracking forward in zodiacal motion towards the sun, which will have a new moon in Aquarius. So the last thing was a full moon at 20 degrees Cancer. The node right now is at 16 degrees Leo. Eclipses happen when a lunation happens within 18 degrees of a node. Is 20 degrees Cancer within 18 degrees Leo? No. That is 18 degrees of Leo plus the last remaining 10 degrees of Cancer. That is 28 degrees of distance, so there's no eclipse there. Which means the first eclipse in the eclipse pairing is about to happen when we have the new moon here. So I'm born, and then 3 to 4 days after I'm born, with my balsamic Sagittarius moon to my Aquarius sun, we have a new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius, a new moon solar Aquarius eclipse, okay? And then 2 weeks later, we have a full moon Leo lunar eclipse. So that makes me an eclipse baby. I'm born with either the last or the next lunation having been an eclipse. For me, it's the next 2 lunations are eclipses instead of being born in between them, or after 2, I'm born before 2. And what's interesting about this part of my birth story is, so we've got 3 to 4 days after birth is eclipse 1, and then you add another 14 days for eclipse number 2. And I was born preemie, and I was put in an incubator, and I got out of the hospital after 16 days. So eclipses wind up like 17 days after I'm born. 16 days after I'm born, I'm free. Okay? Okay, so that's birth story number 1. Birth story number 2 is I have this Venus retrograde at 25:55 Capricorn, and I have this Mercury at 10:20 Capricorn. Mercury just came out of a station, like I think 3 to 4, maybe 6 days before I was born. He stationed direct at, I think it was like 6 degrees Capricorn. We can look this up. No, I'm not going to look it up. You can look it up. You can correct me. You can know better. But what I noted is that Mercury had zoomed past Venus here, stationed retrograde, moved over it again, stationed direct, and is here now when I was born. So I'm still in my post-shadow phase of Mercury retrograde, and then I'm going to be speeding up, and I'll have an external conjunction with the sun somewhere in Pisces, I believe, later in my like 40s or 50s. But what I notice how this comes up for me is I am like into like planetary days. So like Wednesdays are Mercury's day and Fridays are Venus's day. And I kept meaning to do like some paintings and like some Venusian type things, like specifically for Venus. And then I would just find myself just sitting down and just doing them on a Wednesday. And then once I kind of looked at this, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Mercury knows all about Venus. He's been in her spot twice. They're facing each other under like the heavy gaze of Saturn and the far planets, which like Venus is facing as well. I take it as like Saturn is like a Snape character, and Venus is just like little and like, help me, Mercury. And Mercury's like, I got you, girl. You know? So, to me, it makes a lot of sense that they have a lot to do with each other, my Mercury and my Venus, not just because they're co-present in the same house at the same sign, but there's this relationship where like Mercury's been there. He's like potentially primed it. He maybe dropped off some of her stuff in this spot, so she is as comfortable as can be. She does have some resources, you know. Um, so I guess that's another way to look at planetary story is you find a way to like Terry Pratchett make it work for you, you know? You, you take the facts about your life and you make them as positive, you gaslight yourself into positivity, and you like make that the reality. Like, why not, you know? And then, speaking of these retrogrades, the Venus retrograde uh, went past this Sun position and then is going to station direct before having any contact with Saturn. So it was just the one time direct pass through Capricorn, like a long ass time ago, because then she got into Aquarius, slowed down, turned retrograde for 40 days, and is in that process, that 40-day cycle now. It's going to station direct in about 17 days, and then hit new ground at about 34 days, and then eventually come into a uh, solar maximum, or like I don't know if that's what that's called. Sorry, she'll come into the superior conjunction with the sun, somewhere like somewhere not close by, because it takes her a while to gear up and catch up with the sun. So that's the key part about my Venus planetary story. Like she's got a whole lot going on, and I could talk endlessly about what's going on with her in this house. But as part of the planetary like movement, like what's going on with her, she had been into Aquarius, had come back through, and is slowing down now past the. She's already had the internal conjunction. She's already been through hell basically. So slowing down, ready to turn around and get moving. How this shows up in my life is that um, my sister had a baby at around age 16, 17 for me. And Venus is my benefic of sect, because I have a night chart, in my third house of siblings. So I do find that Venus transits really line up with a lot of interaction with my sister and or her daughter, which she had right around this station point, this station direct point, which lined up with my secondary progressed um, station direct, which is the other side of the birth story, because all of these days correlate into years of your life. Yeah? There's other information about that. I'm not going to go into it. This is the information in practice. And then the final part of my birth story, which I have to talk about, is that Jupiter is retrograde and station direct at around like age 32 or 33, right along the same time that Venus got into new ground and left her retrograde path, that she has been in like since before I was born. And so these happening at basically the same time, both benefic stationing or having something new happen in their long-term station cycles, and also being kind of like a bigger blossoming into astrology. Venus being a key planet for me in astrology, in my astrology journey, and Jupiter being exalted up in the ninth house with a superior trine to the ascendant, that lines up as well. So, looking at the ephemeris, looking at your secondary progressions, even if you're not applying it to like when will things happen in my life, you're gonna find those things that line up anyway, or getting to know how the planets interacted right before you were born, how that continues to play out right after you were born. Like you were born in a snapshot of a moving scene. So what is that scene about? And then seeing how that plays out in your life. Like me, for sure, like drawing and making art is just as much like Mercury as the artist as it is Venus, like art. it just helped me make so much more sense of how I was spending my time and like trying not to bully myself out of doing, I don't know, things I had been trying to save for Venus when I was doing them with Mercury, basically, like doing art. When I was like, no, like, who would know better about what Venus wants in her art than Mercury? He's been all up in that spot. And she's not in any position to communicate with me anyway, like trapped as she is in this tight spot in my chart. So anyway, that is one of the techniques that I really enjoyed finding and using, and I thought really helped uh, personalize astrology for me and light up my chart in a way that I had not seen yet online, was to take a look through the planetary speed and when some stations were happening, when were conjunctions, particularly right around the birth, if you can look like the week or two before or after. But even overall, and then applying those, if you like that technique, to secondary progressions and seeing if there are lineups when certain shifts happened in the first days or the days around your birth, that may pertain to your birth story that resonate on a larger scale over time with your life, like my Venus stationing retrograde at 17 and my niece being born at 16, like those happening so close together. Okay, that's what I got. Okay, bye.